My name is Philip Deturi. I'm the Director of Education at FiCycle, and today I'm going to be giving a talk which we call Wealth Not Cash. This talk is directed at two groups of people. The first group is teachers of the FiCycle course. This talk will cover the first unit or so and teach you some of the basics of personal finance. To that same end, this is also useful for anyone who's interested in learning more about wealth and personal finance. So let's get started. The essential question that we're going to be examining today is, if you want to be wealthy in the long run, should you spend or save your money? And we're going to be looking at two characters to start. The first character is Stingy Steve. Stingy Steve saves all the money he can get his hands on. He spends the minimum possible on living costs. He eats ramen every night and cuts all the corners he can to scrimp and save as much cash as he can get. Flashy Fiona, on the other hand, saves virtually none of the cash she receives. Whenever she gets a paycheck, she tends to spend her money, often on things like jewelry, clothes, or other goods. After living their respective lifestyles for 5 years, Steve has $120,000 in cash, while Fiona only has $250. So who do you think's in the better financial position? As you might have guessed, there's more to the story. Stingy Steve also borrowed $50,000 from Shady Pete the loan shark because he wanted to have more cash in his house. Pete wants $90,000 back by the end of the month and does not like to be made to wait. To avoid spending too much, Steve also bought cheap clothes that are now falling apart, and he lives in a small one-bedroom apartment building that he rents that's also falling apart. Flashy Fiona, on the other hand, recently completed an expensive law degree and is ready to start working as an attorney in New York. She has bought an apartment in a fashionable area of Brooklyn that has appreciated in value, and she owns a wardrobe full of designer clothes and stocks in rising startups. So, who do you think's in a better financial position now? Does cash tell us the whole story? I mean, we know that Steve really likes having cash, but he also owns a lot of money to the loan shark Shady Pete, and he has spent his money on clothes that are now falling apart. So he does have more cash on hand than Fiona. Fiona, on the other hand, has invested in property in an up-and-coming neighborhood, has invested in stocks, owns quality clothes, has a law degree that will help her hopefully earn more income in the coming years. However, she has less cash than Steve. The answer is that it's really not so simple. There is no direct connection between wealth and cash savings. However, you will find that most people, especially your students if you're a teacher, tend to think that cash means wealth, but it really doesn't. If we want to know if someone's in a good financial position, it's not enough to just look at how much cash they have. We have to look at their entire financial situation. Cash is the most important thing if looking at your immediate situation, but wealth is what you want to consider if you're thinking about your financial issues over your entire financial life cycle. Now, what is your financial life cycle? Well, this phrase comes from a Nobel Prize winning theorem in economics called the life cycle hypothesis of saving by a man named Franco Modigliani. What this hypothesis says is that we can think of our financial lives as being broken into 5 categories: education, early career, family, late career, and retirement. However, in some phases of our lives, such as education and retirement, our income is less than our expenses. In other phases in our lives, such as early career, family, and late career, our income exceeds our expenses. And what Franco Modigliani said is that in order to successfully navigate one's financial life cycle, they need to understand 2 principles. The first is that you can transfer consumption from one period of life to another, either taking money from your future self in the form of a loan, or transferring money to your future self in the form of an investment. The second thing we need to understand is that every time we do that, we incur risk. Now, in order to go a little bit deeper, we need to define some terms. We first need to define consumption. Consumption is the use of a good that reduces its value. In general, people find examples involving food to be very easy to understand consumption. An easy example is a slice of pizza. I buy a slice of pizza, or I buy a slice of pizza for $2. Before I eat it, it's worth $2. After I eat it, it's not worth anything. I have consumed it. People understand that idea of consumption. However, much more difficult for people to understand is some other examples. For instance, I can also consume a pair of sneakers. Now, I don't have to eat them to consume them. When I wear a pair of sneakers and they get dirty and I use them, I'm reducing their value. If I buy a new pair of Air Jordans, maybe they're worth $100, but after I wear them and they're all dirty, no one's going to pay me $100 for my dirty sneakers. So once I've taken them out of the box and worn them, I have, in a sense, consumed them. Another example would be watching your school football game. If you don't have to pay, if it's a free game, you're not consuming anything by watching it. What about an NFL game? Well, if I had to buy a ticket, I consume that ticket. Again, not because I plan on eating the ticket, but because once I buy that ticket, let's say it's worth $65. When I go to the game, I have used the ticket and I've consumed it. Now that ticket is worth nothing because the game has happened and the game has passed. So in a sense, I can consume a ticket to a game. However, that doesn't mean that going to watch my school football team play a game is consumption. If I didn't have to pay anything for that, I'm not consuming anything. Nothing decreases in value as a result of me watching a free game. However, if I had to pay a ticket for the game, that ticket decreases in value once I use it. Now, consumption is important because we're going to use it to define wealth. Wealth measures your ability for consumption. The greater your wealth, the greater your ability to consume. Now, don't get me wrong. You can use cash to pay for goods to consume. So cash does increase your wealth, but it's not the only way to increase your wealth. Theoretically, I could probably go out on the street right now with a bar of gold and trade it to someone for their sandwich. I could get a sandwich with gold. Now, maybe it's not a good deal if I give a bar of gold for a sandwich, but I'm just sort of driving home the point that cash is just one good that stores value that can be used for consumption. So we're talking about personal finance. It's important to point out that the aim of personal finance education is to teach people how to effectively manage their wealth, not just their cash, so that they can successfully navigate their financial life cycle.